So now we're going to start Daf Chaf Beis. The Gemara says on the bottom of Chaf Aleph Amid Beis, Mutav sheyochal Yisrael basar tmutos shchutos vel yochal basar tmutos nevelos. So the word tmutos means repulsive, right? Like you have an animal that's very sick and very, on the verge of death. But instead of waiting for the animal to drop dead, which is imminently going to happen, and then you'll end up eating an nevela, the Torah says shechted. So even though it's disgusting to eat, shechted, val yochal basar tmutos nevelos. Don't eat nevela after the animal's pegard is dead. And the Torah, in the case of Eshes Yivas Toar, was matir in order that he shouldn't have a beer with her be'isa, even though again she's mos. Then the pasuk says v'chashachta af al pi she'eina noah. Now, why is this important? I guess it was a havamina that we judge her beauty, and the Torah calls her a beautiful woman, if Torah objectively. Or alternatively, the Torah is talking about a normal situation, a person who has a cheshek with Yifas Torah, but if she's, if she's not Noah, then who would have a desire to have her? But nevertheless, the Torah says, because of his cheshek. But notice he cannot take two noshim yafos mara, yafos Torah. Only one at a time. There's tfisas Kiddushin, even though she wasn't Goya, and even though we're going to force Geras down her throat against her will, nevertheless she's a Gores. And when it says in the pasuk lach leisha, so he's not allowed to take two women, one for himself and one for his father, one for himself and one for his son. In other words, when is he allowed to culminate his sexual desire? That's only when they get home and he brings her to his bias after the whole procedure, but not while they're at the battlefield. And Rabbeinu Tam says that Bia Rishona is muteris b'milchama, af kodem sheniz gaira. Rak Bia Shnia ein muteris el yachar sheniz gaira. Okay, now we go back to the dinim of an Eved Nirtza. Toner Rabbanim Omar Yomar Adshi Yomar V'Yishne. The double language indicates that twice he has to make the declaration, I want to remain a slave. Omar B'Tchila Sheish V'Lo Omar B'Sof Sheish Eino Nirtza. And we'll see the opposite is true as well. So this declaration of a Havti, etc., has to take place early on while he's in heaven, and at the end, the termination of his Avdus. I'm not sure why he has to say this twice. I think it's Xeris HaKos. Amar b'tchila sheish lam b'sof sheish eino nirtza shenemer lo eitzei chafshi ad sheyomer b'shas yitzia when he terminates his abdus. Amar b'sof sheish when he terminates the abdus. V'lo amar b'tchila sheish eino nirtza shenemer im amor yomara eved ad sheyomer kshu eved. At the end of 6 years, he's no longer an eved. So it'd be too late for him to say ahavti, etc. Because the Torah requires amor yomar ha'eved. Achi yomar kishu eved ahavti, etc. Omar b'tchila sheish v'lo b'sof sheish einu nitz Hashem v'lo yitzei chavshi. My area be lo yitzei. Why do you need the pasuk of lo yitzei chavshi to teach you that he has to make this declaration at the time of his yitzia? Typically, to be eaten ahavti es adoni es ishti v'es banai v'leka. So it sounds like the Gemara is saying that at the very beginning of his avdus, he's got to make this declaration. But how could he say lo ahavti es adoni es ishti when he didn't get the shivcha yet? So again, why do we need this drush of lo yitzei chavshi? The Su, and furthermore, Amar b'sof sheish, v'lo Amar b'tchila sheish eino nirtza, shenemar im yom amor or yomar ha'eved. Otu b'sof sheish lav eved hu. What's Gemara's kasha now? We're darshaning that it's not enough that he makes this declaration b'sof sheish. So why isn't he a nirtza? Even b'sof sheish, it's still before the last nightfall on the 6th year. He still is an eved. Amar Rava says it all depends upon how much avoda he has left in this of the 6 years. B'tchilas pruta achrona. If he still has time left within the 6-year framework to do an avoda that's worth a pruta, then he's still an eved. So Gemara says, "B'sof pruta achrona." When the Brisa says that he has to make this declaration, ahavti, etc., and he's got to do it a second time, b'sof sheish, it doesn't mean after the sheish. It means the shas yitzia. What's the shas yitzia? When he still has avdus, although it's less than a shava pruta, but he still has the possibility of avdus to get in under the wire for the cheshbon. Rabbanan, Yeshlo isha ubanim, but a larabo ein isha ubanim, eno nirtza. Where does the Torah say in the Parsha of Nirtza that the Adon has to have a wife and children? Shenemar ki ahavta, ki ahavcha ve'es beisecha. I have a certain endearment to you, my Adon, and your wife. Now the opposite. L'rabo ishu banim v'lo ein ishu banim. Right, the master has a wife and children, but he, the Eved, has no wife or children. So it seems that he has a wife and he has children. But why, if he has a wife and children, his Adon doesn't have Enu Nirtza? Ahavcha es beisecha. What's the logic? Is there any logic to this? Just think about it for a second. Oh, I see. He's got to be perfectly comfortable, the Eved. Right? He's almost like part of the family. So there has to be a mutual love. And he has to love his environment, his house, meaning the bias and the household, including the husband and the wife. Hu oevis rabo v'rabo eno ovo. How comfortable can he feel if his Adon is not in love with him? That's like an understatement. Eno nirtza shenever ki tov lo imach. Right, it's good for him to be with the Rav, with the Adon. But that's not the case if the Adon doesn't like him. Rabo oav over hu eno ovis rabo. That's l'chora with the kal v'chomer. If he doesn't love his Rav. You have to love your Adon. So again, if his Adon doesn't love him, it's not ki tovlo. And if he doesn't love his Adon, then it's not ki ahevcha. Weiter, hu chole v'rabo eno chole eno nirtza. Shenemar ki tovlo imach. Rabo chole v'hu eno chole eno nirtza. Shenemar imach. Ad shiyu shneim chole. I added that. So the perfect Tov Li Imach environment in which the Eved is flourishing and he's having a great time and he wants to stay on, that includes the following elements. Number one, his Adon loves him. Number two, he loves his Adon. Number three, she is beloved to him. Neither of them are cholim. And there's that mutual reciprocal love. What if both the Adon and the Eved are cholim? So they're both shava b'shava. Imach be'inon va'ika. And I guess the word imach here means that we're both on the same level. with Shavim. Vayika. O Dilma ki tovlo yimach be'ina v'oleka teku. Right, it's not noach to either of them. I think Rabbi Bibi Bar-Bai very often asks questions that end in teku, like Rabbi Yirmiyah. Tana Rabbana, we learned to the Brayso ki tov lo yimach b'machal, yimach b'mishta. You have to be shovel adon in the quality of the food and the drink. Shloteata ochel pas nekiya. Vehu and the Eved ochel pas kibar. I guess pas kibar is like one of those breads, that they make out of bran or something like that. Very famous Gemara here that we're about to learn. Soft mattresses. He has to sleep on out there in the straw. Mikan Amru here, the Chacham formulated that famous statement called Kona Eved Ivri Kona Adon Liatzma. And the Yerushalmi amplifies this. Why? Because let's say there's only one pillow. The halacha is you have to give the Eved a pillow. And you yourself, the Adon, can't use that pillow. So that's Ravo, Kikona Adon Liatzma. Tana Rabbana, we learned in a Brayso, all this Brayso is based on the Chiv Mizonos, is V'yotze me'ima hu bonav ima. And what does it mean, hu bonav? It means his bonim from his first wife, meaning his Jewish wife. Because the Shivcha goes back to the Adon, meaning the Eved's wife. And the pasuk says, "Ha'ishav yiladeh tia ladoneha hu yetze begapo." On Reb Shimon, im hu nimkar badav ubnosa binim karet. We're talking about his children, male and female, from his Jewish wife. They weren't sold as an Eved. The whole issue here is whether or not the Adon has to pay mizonos to Ishto Bana. And when the Eved goes free, at that point, that the obligation to support his wife terminates. So it says here Banav, but it means Banav ve'ishto, as the Gemara clarifies. Kayotze b'dovrata omer im bal isho v'yotze ishto imo. On Reb Shimon im hu nimkar ishto b'mkeres. What does it mean, Teitze Imo? She was never sold as a, call it an Om, I guess. So when the Eved is Yotze Lecherus, his Isha goes with him, and the master is not obligated in Mizonos. So now we have two drushes. One drasha for Banav and another drasha for Ishto. Utzricha, Te'iash me'inan Banav. If you only told me that the Chiv Mizonos vis-a-vis the ban of the Eved is only limited as long as the Eved is alive. Is mishum de lo bnei Eved mechal ninhu. Why can't they work? They're ketanim, and they're not part of the workforce. So therefore, the Adon has to support them. When you think about it, taking out an Eved is no, it's not not easy street, if you know what I mean. And first of all, if you have only one pillow, you have to give it to him. And if you have to support his children. Let me just quickly. All right, I'm up to here. Utzricha. So why do we have to establish from two psukim that the Adon has to support A, his children from his marriage, his Jewish marriage, and B, his wife from his Jewish marriage? The Iyashmin and Banov, if we only knew that the Chiyuv Mizoros incumbent upon the Adon vis-a-vis the Banim, Mishum Delabnei Eved, their children, and they can't support themselves. Sarach Manas. Amal Ishto Devas Mechol Mevri, let her go out and get a job. She can support herself. If the Torah had told me that he's chayv in the mizonos of the Eved's wife, original wife, right? Is the lav darkol iduri, because it's not derech for a woman to go out and try to, panhandle, knock on doors. That's a busha. Amal Bonov, the dirchayu lidure, darkom is lachzal psachim. I don't know exactly why, and they're not bari busha. They don't have, humiliation at that age. Is aim low. Maybe the Adon is not chayiv to support them. Let them go. Be chozer al psachim tzricha. Now we have two parshios of Ritzia. We have in Parshas Mishpatim Shmos Chaf Aleph, and we have in Parshas Re'eh in Dvarim Tesvav. And now we turn to Daf Chaf Beis Omin Beis.